Now the latest ITV News in the Calendar region with Katy, Rickitt and Michael Billington.
Good evening, welcome to ITV News. This is Monday night's calendar.
And here are tonight's main stories.
Another needless loss as Parliament pays tribute to Sir David Amess. The sister of murdered Batley MP Jo Cox asks why lessons haven't been learnt.
I know more than most the damage that an attack and a horrific murder of this nature can do to individuals, to a community. A lot of these conversations were had after Jo was killed, and it is frustrating for me that I'm hearing a lot of the same things being said again.
We speak to South Yorkshire's first ever black policeman as he recalls his own experiences of racism from officers.
As I got to somewhere around here, I saw the police van. The policeman just appeared and just says, "Oi, where you going?" And just told him home. Next minute I'm in the van.
Kicking up an environmental stink with 3 billion disposable nappies landfilled every year. Is it time to switch to reusables?
And Strictly Still Sprightly, how Olive proved you're never too old for a dance as she celebrated her 104th birthday. But first tonight to Parliament's tributes to Sir David Amess as the sister of murdered Batley and Spen MP Jo Cox questioned whether lessons have been learned in the 5 years since her violent death.
On behalf of the Dean and Chapter of Westminster,
This is the scene live at St Margaret's Church at Westminster Abbey, where a service is taking place to honour the veteran Essex MP who was killed in a knife attack at his constituency office on Friday.
Well, earlier this afternoon, the Commons fell silent to remember him before MPs shared their own memories and tributes. Among those speaking was Jo's sister Kim Leadbeater, who believes we need to balance the protection of MPs against their need to connect with their local communities. She's been speaking to our political correspondent Harry Horton.
As MPs come together to remember one of their own, one MP in particular can relate to the pain Sir David Amess's family are going through. 5 years ago, the Batley and Spen MP Jo Cox was murdered outside her constituency office. Today, her sister and successor, Kim Leadbeater, said she was ready to support Sir David's family in any way she can.
I know more than most the damage that an attack and a horrific murder of this nature can do to individuals, to a community. And for so many people, after what happened on Friday, their lives will never be the same again.
The murder of 2 MPs in 5 years has raised more questions about their security.
We need to look a little bit more carefully at some of the measures that we can put in place. I mean, for example, I will never put myself in a room where anybody can walk through the door. For obvious reasons, I would just never feel safe doing that. Obviously, a lot of these conversations were had after Jo was killed, and it is frustrating for me that I'm hearing a lot of the same things being said again. So I do think we need to look at how things operate. But again, it's that fine line, isn't it? We need to protect our MPs and our public servants in the same way that we need to protect lots of people who have public-facing roles. But we also have to protect democracy. So we have to have a situation where you can have open discussions with people, the people that you've been elected to serve.
Many MPs said it was time to tone down the rhetoric aimed at politicians.
It shouldn't be a prerequisite that you should be resilient and having to face death threats and having to face the risk of death to do your job. That shouldn't be a prerequisite to be a public servant in any job. I can't thank West Yorkshire Police enough for the amount of support that they give me, when this happened, when Jo died, throughout the last so many years, because I've had a lot of death threats, had people going to prison in the past.
Over the weekend, some MPs pressed ahead with their constituency surgeries despite worries about safety.
I'd be telling a lie if I didn't, wake up this morning with a sense of, anticipation and a bit of worry, really. But Sir David, one of the things that he always talked about was being accessible is one of the great things about our democracy, and we have to do that.
In Batley today, voters said close contact with MPs was a vital part of democracy.
I think the public need to speak to them and be involved and have questions answered. I don't know what the answer is, to be quite honest.
The MP, they represent the area, so there should be access to everyone.
It's nice that they can have somebody to talk to if they'll listen to what we're saying.
In the days ahead, MPs will consider how they can continue to keep in close touch with their constituents' lives, whilst also ensuring the safety of their own.
Well, let's cross live now to Harry in Westminster. Harry, what else have MPs been saying today about Sir David Amess?
Yeah, well, MPs taking part in that church service at the moment, singing hymns and paying tribute to Sir David Amess. There's been tributes paid this afternoon in the House of Commons as well, including from the Batley and Spen MP, Kim Leadbitter. She spoke about how she was heartbroken to hear that another family was going through the same nightmare that she went through 5 years ago. And speaking to MPs today, there is a real sense of shock and sadness that for the second time in 5 years, one of their own has been killed. Now, police have been in touch with all MPs over the weekend to discuss concerns they might have about their safety. MPs saying publicly that they really think there needs to be a shift in the rhetoric directed towards not just politicians but all people in public life. And I think there's also a sense of determination that they should remain accessible to the public and democracy shouldn't cower to this threat that they face.
And Harry, away from Westminster, what's the latest with the investigation into Sir David's death?
Yeah, well, a 25-year-old man has been arrested under the Terrorism Act. Police have until the end of the week to question that man, so it could be some time before we hear any more details about the investigation. But the focus here in Westminster today very much on Sir David Amess, his life and his legacy of public service.
OK, Harry Horton, our political correspondent in Westminster, thank you.
OK, next tonight, a woman from Scunthorpe has called for more money to be invested in brain tumour research after more than £110,000 was raised to treat her husband with therapy not currently available on the NHS.
Dave Hopkins, who's 46, was suffering from headaches before he was told he had a grade 4 incurable tumour. The Department of Health says it announced £40 million of research funding in 2018.
But Dave's wife, Nikki, says more needs to be done. She's been speaking to our reporter, Jonathan Brown.
Life was probably too perfect. You know, when you think it'll never happen to you.
After almost 12 years of marriage, Nikki says her family's lives were turned upside down in just a matter of days last September, after her husband Dave started suffering from headaches.
We were stood in the corridor and he just stood there and told me he'd got a brain tumour. Just couldn't believe it. They didn't expect the chemotherapy or radiotherapy to even work, to basically make as many memories as you could.
Within a week, he had had surgery in Hull to remove 90% of the tumour, but doctors told his family there was little else they could do to help. That prompted Nikki to research alternative treatments. They've since raised more than £110,000 thanks to fundraising events including this litter pick, organised by their daughter Sydney. In recent months, they've travelled to German immunotherapy clinics like this one in Cologne and paid for private drug therapy. But Dave's condition has worsened and he's currently in hospital.
If that treatment was here in the UK, we could continue that, but at the minute it's not healthy enough to travel. Things have got to change. They say it's rare, it's not rare.
Every year, around 16,000 people are diagnosed with brain tumours in the UK. But according to the brain tumour research charity, historically only 1% of the national spend on cancer research has focused on brain cancers. And as it stands, only 12% of people with brain tumours live for more than 5 years after diagnosis.
If you look at what we've done with breast cancer, we've improved the prognosis dramatically for those disease areas. And that's because we've been funding those areas well. Now, if we could do the same for brain tumour research, then we can have the same impact.
We really aren't getting enough attention paid in terms of research. And the reason that matters is at the moment, we don't have that many approved treatments.
Will the Prime Minister join me in wishing the Hopkins family well?
In January, Scunthorpe MP Holly Mumby-Croft took the family's case to the House of Commons. And in a statement, a Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson said, in 2018 we redoubled our efforts to find therapies and new treatments to deepen our understanding of this condition. We announced £40 million of funding for research over 5 years. But Nikki says for her and many others, supporting their loved ones through the toughest of times only strengthens their desire for change.
The last few days have been horrific, to be honest, in hospital. I've slept there the last 2 nights. To be there with him, I'd hate for anybody to go through what we're going through.
So while the fundraising efforts continue here in Scunthorpe, Nikki says she's doing all she can to spread the word to give those fighting the same fight fresh hope. Jonathan Brown, ITV News, Scunthorpe.
And we wish her luck with that. Now, still to come on tonight's show, is it time to hit the pause button? With China enforcing strict limits on how long children spend gaming, should we think about doing the same here?
And we swap the warm, wet and windy weather for colder, clearer conditions as the week wears on. I'll have that all-important forecast.
Drivers are being warned that the M1 motorway southbound near Wakefield is likely to remain closed for several hours tonight following a serious incident. Highways England say police and an air ambulance have been at the scene between junctions 42 for Lofthouse and 41 for Wakefield. 2 vehicles were involved in a collision on the southbound carriageway at around 20 to 5, which is also leading to tailbacks on the M621.
Next tonight, former South Yorkshire police officer Bill Thomas served at some of the most momentous events the force has had to deal with, for example, the Hillsborough disaster and the miners' strike.
But what makes Bill's story even more remarkable is that he was the first black officer in South Yorkshire. Tonight, his story is told in a new Channel 4 documentary, Yorkshire Cop, Police, Racism and Me. Here's Martin Fisher.
The writing on the wall says everything about how respected Bill Thomas is in this South Yorkshire community. But tonight's documentary takes him back to the start of his service and events like the miners' strike, as told by his filmmaker son, Alex.
On the 18th of June 1984, a violent confrontation erupted right here, known as the Battle of Orgreave, and Dad was at the epicentre of the battlefield. 12 grueling months of the miners' strike left Britain more divided than ever.
We're not pickets anymore, we're prisoners in his own country.
That's my dad, right in the thick of it.
The film also highlights Bill's first-hand experience of police racism in the wake of rioting in Chapeltown, Leeds.
As I got to somewhere around here, I saw the police van, and then this policeman just appeared and just says, "Oi, where you going?" And just told him home. Next minute I'm in the van.
So did he read your rights or anything? Or
No, he didn't tell me nothing. I didn't know what the hell was happening. I've never had any involvement with police in my life.
But Bill chose to take on such attitudes by joining the force.
We did not have anybody within the force who looked like us and who had an understanding of what we are expecting. And it's like, what do? Do you sit there and do nothing? Or do you try and do something? And we're going to be better, we'll be more effective to be inside rather than being outside looking in.
In the 80s, it was a very different world. Like, language that was acceptable, attitudes that were deemed acceptable then are no longer tolerated now. So you're meant to just put up with it, really. Like, what seems very horrific to us now, you were told to get on with it. And if you couldn't get on with it, then you were in the wrong job.
So Bill became a trailblazer, working with the Black Police Association, seeing others join the force after him.
I was the 14th black officer to join South Yorkshire Police, so without people like Bill and coming together later on to help others that came after us, it was very important that he was amongst the first, and we learned from him.
I've been very, very proud of the fact that I have done the best I can and I've helped wherever I can. And what I believe in more strongly, I believe that us as black people do have a place in this country. That'd be my passing shot.
Yorkshire Cop, Police, Racism and Me airs tonight on Channel 4 at 10 p.m. Martin Fisher, ITV News.
Yeah, Bill, a real trailblazer by all accounts. Now, as many of us try to make small changes in our lives to live more sustainably, like switching to reusable shopping bags or coffee cups, for instance, we're being asked whether we'd also consider doing the same with nappies.
Yes, a growing number of parents say they want to be greener, and Lauren Hall has been hearing from one South Yorkshire family who've opted for the more environmentally friendly route.
He's only 7 months old, but he may already be doing his bit for the environment. When it comes to nappies, this family from Sheffield opt for reusables rather than disposables.
The environment, I think it was something that was very much in the media around the time I was expecting my eldest in 2018. So we had a think and we thought, okay, what's out there? We Googled reusable nappies and we were incredibly overwhelmed by all the choice and the terminology out there, which was what led us to the nappy library. And that's how I ultimately ended up volunteering with them. But another big factor for us and for a lot of other families we find nowadays is cost.
There's a growing number of parents choosing reusable nappies.
They're sealed with Velcro. One size fits most babies.
This company makes cloth nappies and it's seen a huge rise in demand over the past few years.
We were listed last year in the 100 fastest growing companies in the UK, and you can see that throughout the industry. And I think for parents who walk down the aisles of supermarkets and pharmacies and look online, the availability of reusable nappies has never been greater, and that's because the demand is there.
That said, there's still plenty of demand for disposables. Here in the UK, around 3 billion disposable nappies end up in landfill each year. That's around 2 to 3% of all household waste. The body representing the disposable nappy industry says they are making improvements and that the alternatives still have an impact on the environment.
It's important to remember that both types of nappy carry an impact. Cloth nappies consume water and energy and detergent. Disposable nappies create waste. Over the last few decades, disposable nappy manufacturers have reduced the size of nappies, which means there's less waste, there's less raw materials, there's less plastics, transport and energy. And I think this combined with the fact that they are so easy to use, they work so well, they are the preferred choice of around 95% of parents.
It's certainly the nappy of choice for most families. We spoke to some of the parents at this playgroup to find out why.
I feel guilty about using them, yet it is my convenience that I use them.
I actually get biodegradable disposable nappies and I use cloth nappies as well.
Environmental issues are very important, increasingly so now. But I would say the difficulty as a parent is finding the time to do all that additional cleaning.
Disposable nappies are convenient and I wouldn't have any other way. No, sorry.
Research is now underway to assess the environmental impact of both reusable and disposable nappies. The results are due to be published later this year. And for some parents, it may mean a change of nappy at nappy changing time. Lauren Hall, ITV News.
Nice to see him doing their bit right from the early days.
Absolutely.
And also you get funkier pants by the looks of it, because those nappies were actually quite cool, weren't they?
Some very
nice design.
fashionable young children in that last report.
And now moving very seamlessly from toddlers to teenagers and concerns over how long they're spending glued to screens playing video games.
New research shows 1 in 5 parents think their child's behaviour is worse now than before the pandemic, with many citing excessive gaming and a refusal to do homework.
So could we learn something from China, which has now rationed youngsters playing online to just 1 hour on Fridays, weekends and holidays in a bid to get them back to their studies? Here's Ravneet Nandra.
Press a few buttons and in a matter of seconds, you're playing against someone from across the world. But in China, they think children are online for too long and are restricting them to an hour on Fridays, weekends and holidays.
There are some broadly shared concerns about the future of the young, the high stresses imposed on them by the education service, but also younger people might easily get addicted to online games.
Mental health charity Place to Be has found 20% of parents are likely to say their child is gaming more than before the pandemic. These students at Wetherby High School are learning how to be safe online and how much is too much screen time.
If you're spending like 24/7 on games, you might get lack of sleep. Like you won't be able to control yourself and your brain won't have time to just reset.
You need to have that healthy balance in life, so you've got a bit of all the benefits and a bit of all the disadvantages.
If you have a time limit, it restricts everything that you do. Like YouTube isn't all just pranks and fun. It's also got some inspirational videos on there.
The UK government hasn't officially commented on China's new regulations, but they're unlikely to impose similar restrictions here. And there are things parents can do to work with children.
I think it's really important that they spend time getting, understanding, the games that their children play, and ideally getting involved and, and playing together. So this can give them a really good insight into the games the children are playing and what the children are getting from those games. And also as they play together, they can help them watch out for risks and teach them how to stay, safe online.
These young adults definitely want to avoid any gaming regulations. They play at this centre, which gives young people with additional needs the training to start a career in online gaming.
It's the best way to make friends half the time when you can't exactly meet up with them in person.
I think people should be allowed the freedom to be expressive and play how they want.
Just to get away from that societal demand that's actually on them. And they're creating and connecting into communities and peer groups, which is massively important in any social development. So if we're going to remove that level of social development, I'd say that wouldn't be healthy. But we have to open up the dialogue and find out what's positive, what's negative, and then of course strike the balance.
Being online creates a unique community. Experts want parents and children to ultimately work together in order to be safe online. Ravneet Nandra, ITV News.
Foresee a few rows tonight. Get off that, only Fridays and weekends.
Indeed. Now the ITV Evening News continues at 6:30. Here's a look at what's happening with Charlene White.
Coming up, tributes to the MP stabbed at his constituency surgery. Sir David Amess's family visited the church where he was killed, while MPs and Parliament fell silent before sharing emotional memories. Also ahead, England ordered to play a game behind closed doors after violence at the Euros final. And how the Netflix and chill generation are picking names for their kids. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Thanks, Charlene. OK, now it's time for the sport.
For the love of the game. eBay sponsors ITV Regional Sports Reports.
Aris with us now, and it was a good weekend for our cyclists at the Road Championships, wasn't it?
It was indeed, Michael, as Rotherham's Ben Swift retained his British Road title. The COVID-delayed National Championships returned to Lincoln for the first time in 2 years, and the 33-year-old held off a late challenge as he navigated the wet cobble streets to come home in first place, keeping hold of his title.
My coach texted me saying, how's it feel to be waking up as the champ? I was like, it's pretty normal at the minute. I've had it for the last 2 years. So, no, obviously it's a massive honour to have this jersey, to represent your country. Luckily, I get to race the best races in the world and to pull this jersey on. And I think it's maybe a bit biased, but I think it's one of the nicest jerseys out there.
OK, to football now, in Rotherham and Sheffield United were the big winners this weekend. But we start the roundup of the weekend's action in the Premier League, where it's proving to be a difficult season for Leeds United. It was a long and difficult afternoon on the south coast for an injury-hit Leeds United. Southampton's Armando Broja finally broke the Whites' resistance in the second half to score the only goal of the game. Dan James came closest for Leeds, who failed to register a single shot on target. In the Championship, Huddersfield Town moved into the playoff places after beating Hull City. Tom Lees bundled in from a corner routine to put the Terriers in front. And it was another set piece where they doubled their advantage, as Dwayne Holmes curled in his first of the season. Bringing on striker David McGoldrick proved a masterstroke from Sheffield United manager Slavica Jokanovic. With the Blades trailing to Stoke, the 33-year-old set up Lys Mousset to level things up at Bramall Lane before scoring the winner himself in an impressive 13-minute cameo.
Things are coming together. I think we've got a style of play now which everybody understands and is committing to, and I think it's really starting to pay off. We're creating a lot of chances defensively. We're looking good as well. If we can just try and cut out little mistakes.
Despite it being one of Barnsley's best performances of the season, they lost 1-0 to Reading, with the Tykes now winless in 10. In League One, Rotherham romped to victory at the New York Stadium as they beat Portsmouth 4-1. After scoring the opener, confidence was flowing through Michael Smith's veins as he scored his second with this back heel against his former club. Richard Wood's header and Ben Wild's strike rounded off an impressive afternoon's work. There was more than a touch of fortune in the way Lincoln took the lead against Charlton. Teddy Bishop's shot was parried onto Jayden Stockley, who inadvertently headed into his own net. Some defensive frailties of their own allowed Charlton to equalise before Regan Poole headed in the winner deep into added-on time. Goal difference keeps Sheffield Wednesday outside the playoff places despite squandering a 2-goal lead as they drew at Wimbledon. Doncaster stay bottom of League One after they lost 2-0 to Wickham. There were no winners from our region in League Two. Bradford twice threw away leads to draw with Bristol Rovers. Harrogate suffered their first defeat in a month as they went down to Colchester. Mansfield are still looking for their first win since August after losing away to Northampton. And Scunthorpe continue to prop up the table after 2 goals in 5 minutes, condemned them to another defeat. Staying with football, and Pontefract Collieries, who are in the 4th step of non-league, are still dreaming of making it into the first round of the FA Cup. They drew with Halifax in the final qualifying game on Saturday, meaning they made it into the hat for the draw which took place yesterday. Both teams will play again tomorrow for the chance to host Maidenhead, but manager Craig Rose says they can't look past that game.
The draw means absolutely nothing until this game's over and done with, and then you can look at the draw in respect of whether you're playing them or in respect of whether it's a chance missed and Halifax are through. So whatever happens, it's obviously great to see our name on live TV in the first round draw. It's never happened before, but as I stated, we don't want to get too carried away because we've got a massive job to do tomorrow night.
And finally from me, it's congratulations to Matt Fitzpatrick, who won the Andalusia Masters yesterday. The Sheffield golfer overturned a 3-shot deficit in his final round to finish top of the pile in Spain. It was an impressive display from the 27-year-old who didn't drop a shot as he took the lead in the final few holes. The win is his 7th on the European Tour. And that's it from me.
Thank you. What a nice fancy trophy as well.
Indeed. Now, finally, we're wishing a very happy birthday to Olive Robinson from Leeds, who turned 104 years young over the weekend.
Happy birthday to you.
She was treated to a surprise party by the staff and residents at the Southlands Retirement Apartments in Roundhay and spent the weekend dancing. Good on you, Olive. She has her hair and nails done weekly, still wears heels and shared with us her secrets to a long life.
I was never a smoker or a drinker or anything like that, but I used to go out and enjoy a social life. Had a good husband, and I was never out of work at any time. Never signed on in my life for benefits.
Oh, the
Amazing.
recipe to a long and fruitful
Well, it doesn't sound
life.
like a lot of fun, though. I mean, don't drink and all that sort of stuff, but I'm glad that she had a lovely social
Well, she's
life.
enjoying herself at a party, isn't she?
And dancing is obviously what gets you through. Here's Helen Flint. She'll be dancing with the weather.
Bringing you blue skies and sunshine. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire weather.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. Well, messy but mild for the first portion of this week. So autumnal, in fact, we've got lots of cloud, these wet, windy spells coming one after the other, but exceptionally mild, if not warm by day, for this point in October. You can see that indicated on the map here with the yellows as they appear, but also turn your attention to all of these fronts winging in successively one after the other from the west, from the Atlantic, until a sharp gear change into Thursday, when instead that brisk northwesterly breeze really will hammer down the feel of those temperatures very sharply, a shock to the system, also bringing, though, something a little drier and brighter into Friday. Out there at the moment, still the hang back of something a little bit damp and dreary into this evening. Generally, though, any rain moving off the scene, and we've got lots of cloud. And where we've got the moisture in the air, potential for some mist and murkiness to develop as well. But again, notice those temperatures, just 14, 15 degrees overnight. Normally, as a minimum this time of year, we'd be looking at 5 to 8 degrees. So it really is something quite impressive. Fairly muggy start to the day on Tuesday then, but with lots of cloud and very quickly our next batch of heavy, persistent driving rain pushing up from the south and pulsing its way across the region. So that'll hang around for quite some time, and it could come and go even into the afternoon as well. Behind that, a good deal of cloud lingering and quite a breezy day all in all too. Notice though, again, our temperatures hovering towards the high teens. This is still pretty respectable. Again, through Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, things staying unsettled at first, but by and large, we'll get more in the way of brightness as our temperatures drop away.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire weather.
Thanks for that, Helen. That's it from us. Our next update is at 10 to 11.
The national and international stories are next with Charlene White.
But for now, from the team here on Calendar, thanks ever so much for watching, and we will see you again when you join us for the next bulletin. Take care.
Tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.